please subscribe to Tiny Dreams channel. Press the bell icon to get more updates.
Papa, I have to prepare a story that should convey the meaning of kindness and sacrifice. Well, this reminds me of a thought by Khalil Gibran. You give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give yourself that you truly give. Papa, can you explain this? Yes, my dear. Listen to this lovely story, The Happy Prince. Atop a tall column, with the whole city at its feet, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. The statue was covered with fine gold and had eyes made of precious sapphires. A large red ruby glittered in the hilt of its sword. One winter evening, a swallow bird arrived in the city and decided to take refuge at the statue's feet. But just as he was about to nestle his head under his wing, he felt a drop of water. How strange, he thought. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are shining brightly, and yet it's raining. Another drop fell, then another. The swallow bird looked up and saw enormous tears rolling down the prince's face. Why are you crying? Asked the bird. When I was alive and had a human heart, explained the statue, I was surrounded by beauty and happiness at my palace. That is why they called me the Happy Prince. But now that I am dead and my statue is in such a high place, I can see the poverty that abounds in the city, and although my heart is made of lead, I cannot help but cry. And what do you see now? Asked the swallow bird. I see a very humble house. Inside there is a woman. She is embroidering the gown that one of the queen's ladies will wear to the ball tomorrow. In one corner of the room lies a small child, sick and hungry. But his poor mother has no food to offer him. Please, swallow, please, would you be so kind as to take the ruby from my sword and take it to her? I cannot move from here myself. Although it was very cold, the swallow bird agreed. He took the ruby from the statue with his beak and flew off with it. When he reached the humble home, the baby was tossing restlessly in his crib, while the mother, exhausted from working so hard, had fallen asleep. The bird deposited the ruby on the table and fanned the boy's sweaty forehead with his wings. The swallow bird returned to the statue and spent the night at its feet. The following day, after visiting the city's buildings and bell towers, he returned to take leave of the prince. Farewell, farewell, my prince. My friends are waiting for me. so that we can begin our journey south. Oh, please, please, Swallow. Stay with me one more night. There in an attic, I see a young playwright who is working on a play for children. He has no heat in his house and he has fainted from hunger. All right, I will stay, the swallow bird agreed, taking pity on the poor playwright. What shall I bring to him? A sapphire from one of my eyes. The swallow, with great sorrow, pulled out one of the prince's eyes and flew towards the attic. When the writer awoke and discovered the jewel, he exclaimed, "Oh, this must be a gift from an admirer. Now I will finally be able to finish my play." The next day, after visiting the port and the fishermen's quarters, the swallow returned to take the leave of the statue. "Farewell, my dear prince. Winter is here, and soon the snow will begin to fall. My friends must be in Egypt by now." "Oh, please, Swallowbird, please," said the prince. "Stay with me one more night. Down in the town square, there is a very poor little girl who sells matches. She is crying because she has dropped her matches in the stream, and her father will beat her if she goes home with no money. Pull out my other eye and take it to her. It doesn't matter if I'm blind." And so the bird flew over the little girl and dropped the sapphire into her hand. "What a beautiful little stone!" exclaimed the girl, and she ran happily home. Meanwhile, the swallow returned to the prince and said, "Now that you are blind, I cannot leave you alone. I will fly over the city and tell you everything I see." The swallow was able to see for himself all the poverty that the prince had described, while the rich enjoyed the luxury of magnificent palaces. The poor suffered terribly and had barely enough to eat. "Take the gold that covers me and give it to the poor," said the prince. So the swallow took the fine gold that coated the statue and distributed it among the city's poor, who thanked God, for they now had money to buy food for their children. The days passed and snow began to fall. The swallow felt colder and colder as the winter progressed. When nobody was looking, he pecked at the breadcrumbs he found at the bakery door and tried his best to stay warm by flapping his wings. Finally, one day he felt that he would die very soon. With great effort, he flew up to the prince's shoulder and whispered in his ear, "Farewell, my dear prince. Permit me to say goodbye. I'm glad that you have finally decided to fly to Egypt," said the prince. "But first, I must tell you that I will miss you and I love you. It's not to Egypt that I'm going, replied the swallow bird. "But to the land of the dead, and I will miss you too." The swallow kissed the prince on his head and collapsed at his feet. At that very moment, a strange noise came from inside the statue. It was the leaden heart which had broken into two. The following day, the mayor of the city ordered that the ugly and shabby-looking statue of the prince be demolished and its metal melted down in a furnace. But though several attempts were made, the statue's leaden heart could not be melted, so it was tossed along with the swallow's lifeless body upon a heap of garbage. "This heart is not even worth keeping as a souvenir," decided the mayor. At that very moment, God said to one of his angels, "Bring me the two most valuable things you can find in the city." So the angel brought back the leaden heart and the dead swallow. "You have chosen well," God said to the angel, "for the swallow shall sing eternally in the garden of paradise, while the happy prince shall sing my praises in the city of gold."